Hello everyone and welcome back to another video in our series. Today we're going to be talking all about the Paladin. Before we get into it though, I would just like to say the Paladin has always been a super strong half caster. It's a very good blend of martial, but then also having a lot of access to spells that really allowed the Paladin to be a solid frontliner with high DPS potential, and so it's always honestly been super strong. And so Wizards of the Coast and the Unearthed Arcana and the 2024 have done a good job at adding a feature or two here and there that I liked and I kept. However, they had adjusted how smites work. They added a fifth level feature that from my travels on the internet was not ultimately well received. I think, at least I didn't like it, and so I've seen a couple other people say the same thing, but I've adjusted that. And so the Paladin, I didn't do too much to it, only because I think the Paladin truly does have a pretty good rooted core identity, and I think that the abilities that it has are fairly strong. And so I just wanted to kind of reverse some of the things that I didn't like that WotC had adjusted in order to bring it back to kind of that 2014 version in some style, because I think the 2014 had some pretty cool had some pretty good identity for the class. And I think that they had cleaned it up a bit in certain wordings for things, but ultimately kind of, I would say, overstepped a bit in just making the Paladin, steering the Paladin in a direction that I don't think it should have necessarily gone. So I kind of tweaked some things, drew some things back, and then adjusted stuff to make sure that the Paladin got some additional things in tandem with all the other classes that I've obviously revised, but didn't just explode in the power threshold and make them insanely overpowered or anything like that. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so above me you're gonna have the Unearthed Arcana document. I always get this wrong. It's gonna be this way. No, this way. See, I always get that wrong. It's gonna be over here. That's gonna be my document, and then of course I do have the 2014 Player's Handbook next to me, so I can reference that as well. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Obviously you have the table here listing everything, but we'll just go ahead and start working our way through. So hit points are going to be the same. Proficiencies are going to be relatively unchanged. Tools, none. Armor, everything, which is nice. Weapons going to be simple and martial. And then the equipment is going to follow the same kind of pattern of what they did in the Unearthed Arcana, where you either can take a gold amount or grab the lineup of equipment that they have listed beneath it. But what we're all really here for is the class features, so let's go ahead and get into this. So first level is going to be Lay on Hands. Your Blessed Touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. With that pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to 5 times your Paladin level. As a bonus action, you can touch a creature, which could be yourself, and draw power from the pool of healing to restore a number of hit points to that creature up to the maximum amount remaining in the pool. In addition, you can expend 5 hit points from the pool of healing to remove the poison conditions from the creature, rather than using those points to restore hit points. An incredible feature. I love Lay on Hands. The Paladin, such a cool, unique thing that they have. Awesome access to basically just innate healing, which is really cool. Biggest difference that I saw from that Wizards of the Coast had adjusted with this is they basically just made it a bonus action. Super good change. This frees up the ability that not only can the Paladin now attack and deal damage on their turn, but they can also do some support to their party members. And I love the fact that you can convert 5 hit points to remove the poison condition. Just a super good versatility with that. Which they there wasn't the additional. I believe that they also allowed you to remove like a disease, but obviously the direction of D&D now is like they kind of went away from the whole disease kind of category, so they just dumbed it down to poison, which I kind of kept that consistent. But really good feature. The action economy there change is super solid. So level 1 spellcasting. I'm not going to read all the spellcasting because it's a hefty freaking chunk here, but if you want to pause the video, feel more than free. The biggest difference for spellcasting is that, and I think that's across the board for a lot of half casters, is that they have adjusted it so all the half casters get access to their spells at first level. Before, some of them, if not all of them, Paladin being one of them, used to get it at second level in the 2014 version, and I do like that they now have access to it at first level. I think that just makes sense. And so they had moved it down, and so I had kept that change as well. However, a big difference is that you no longer have Divine Sense at first level, as the 2014 did. You now will be getting that a little bit later, which we'll get into. But yes, so first level, Lay on Hands, spellcasting, and also you're gonna have access to the Weapon Mastery feature. Your training with weapons allow you to use the mastery property of 2 kinds of weapons of your choice, which you have proficiency in. Whenever you gain a paladin level, you can replace one of your weapon mastery choices with a different one. I really like that martial classes get this kind of additional tool that they can use utilizing their kind of primary weapons. I think it's really cool. So like that, it has that. Level 2, Paladin Smite. So this is where it's going to kind of get a little bit different than what they had adjusted it to be. So Paladin Smite. You've mastered smiting your targets with divine energy. Divine Smite. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can expend 1 spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target, in addition to the weapon's damage. The extra damage is 2d8 for a first level spell slot, plus 1d8 for each spell level higher than first, to a maximum of 5d8. The damage increases by 1d8 if the target is an undead or fiend. This is an innate ability and therefore cannot be counterspelled. Reactive Smiting. Your connection and proficiency in wielding divine energy has made it second nature to imbue your attacks with smiting power. Smite spells no longer require a bonus action to cast, but rather can be cast as part of the attack action at the moment of hitting a creature with a melee weapon attack. However, only 1 smite spell can be cast per turn. And then prepared smites, you always have certain spells ready. When you reach a paladin level specified in the smite table below, you thereafter always have the listed spells prepared. In addition, you can cast one of your prepared spells from this feature without expending a spell slot, and you must finish a long rest before you use this benefit again. Alright, let me kind of go into this. So first of all, I don't know why, but Wizards of the Coast decided to make the, basically, they changed Divine Smite. They basically made the innate feature of the Paladin that was in 2014 known as Divine Smite. They made that a spell, as you can see here. Divine Smite. That was a spell now. And then they made then they kind of went through and reworked a lot of the Paladin, or a lot of the Smite spells, so that all of them take bonus actions, and they did all this different stuff. And I didn't like that. I liked the fact that the Divine Smite was an innate Paladin feature. I thought that was really cool. And so I basically took away the spell that they created, the Divine Smite spell. I put it back into the class as a class feature. That way you can just do that. I also specified that you can't counterspell it, as it is a natural kind of innate thing that you can do. It's not necessarily a spell, but more of like a reactive imbuement of energy. And so I did want to specify that, because I feel like there's just a lot of, they wanted to make all the Divine Smites spells, and they really adjusted a lot of the framework for spells, and they really did a lot of adjustments in just how spells work and how things, kind of synergize or don't or negate one another. And so I just wanted to re-simplify it, and I wanted to add in that extra note, that way if there is any issues or confusion with that it is listed there. And obviously the DM, you can rule it however you want, but I felt like it only made the most sense to put it back into the class itself. I wanted to make sure the Paladin kept that identifiable. Hey, everyone knows Paladin as the ability, smites and frontliners and divine freaking avengers, and just all these different things, and smiting is one of the key aspects to a Paladin. So I wanted to make sure that they kept that. Reactive smiting, I do think it makes sense that smite spells are, you utilize a bonus action, so that way you can imbue an attack, and it does. Smites are really good, and I think it makes sense to have a couple stipulations to be able to get it off. However, I think with the the smiting feature and kind of just overall topic so ingrained in the Paladin, I wanted to make them be able to kind of have an edge in that capacity. That's why I made it so that you can, as this part of the same attack action, you can then cast your either your Divine Smite or your spell of whatever you're choosing is. I also did that because I didn't want to bog down the Paladin by having to take up all their resources by just wanting to smite. Because if they were to utilize one of these now, kind of innate, always prepared spells here, then they would have to burn their bonus action and then also their action just to get it off. And so basically all they get to do on their turn is attack. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems counterproductive to do that when you made Lay on Hands a bonus action at that point. And so that's a big reason why I switched that. I did keep the prepared smites. I do like the fact that the Paladin doesn't have to burn their spell list for the smite spells, because that way it kind of frees them up and they can have a little bit more utility and wiggle room across their their arsenal, now that they don't have to bog down their prepared spells for smites. So all right, Whew, enough of that. Moving on, fighting style. You've honed your martial prowess and gain a fighting style feat of your choice. Those feats have this feature as a prerequisite. Whenever you gain a paladin level, you can replace the feat you chose with a different fighting style feat. That is unchanged, essentially. Third level is going to be Channel Divinity. You can channel divine energy directly from the outer planes, using that energy to fuel magical effects. You start with one such effect, Divine Sense, which is described below. Other Paladin features give additional Channel Divinity effect options. Each time you use this Channel Divinity, you choose which effect to create from among those you have from this class. You can use Channel Divinity twice. You gain one expended use whenever you finish a short rest, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. You gain additional uses when you reach certain Paladin levels, as shown in the Channel Divinity column of the Paladin table. Channel Divinity effect requires a saving throw. The DC equals the spell save DC from this class's spellcasting feature. Divine Sense. As a bonus action, you can open your awareness to detect celestials, fiends, and undead for the next hour or until you have the incapacitated condition. You know the location of any creature of those types within 100 feet of yourself, and you know its creature type. Within the same radius, you also detect the presence of any place or object that has been consecrated or desecrated, as with the Hollow spell. So this is fairly similar to the 2014 version. That I actually took this from the Unearthed Arcana, as you can see here. It's essentially the same thing. However, I did make a slight adjustment to Divine Sense. I made it an hour instead of 10 minutes, and I made it 100 feet instead of 60 feet. Channel Divinity, it's a very limited resource. I do like that they bumped it up. It used to be that you only got one Channel Divinity. Yeah, when you use your Channel Divinity, you choose which option to use. You must then finish a short or long rest to use your Channel Divinity again. And you don't even get additional use. You only got one use of that before. And so I do like that they increased the resource pool of that. You get 2, and then eventually in the back half of your class you get 3. But with that being such a limited resource, I didn't want Divine Sense to be such like a kind of a short time thing. I wanted you to be able to actually feel like it'd be valuable, and you got a prolonged effect if you utilize one of that kind of small resource pool to do Divine Sense, because a lot of the Paladin subclasses give you a really cool Channel Divinity, and so for this to be able to compete, it kind of needed a little bit of a buff, and so that's why I did that. And then I do also like the fact that you now get one expended use of your Channel Divinity on a short rest. It's cool that you get at least something back other than just hit points for that for taking that rest. So super cool. Level 3 Paladin subclass is going to be unchanged. Level 4 is going to be the ability score improvement. Level 5 is going to be extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once when you take the attack action. Level 5 is going to be the Divine Fortitude. This is going to replace the Faithful Steed, which is the thing I was referencing earlier. So level 5 now is going to be your body brims with divine energy and power, granting its fortitude and protection against evil. You have resistance to necrotic damage and have advantage on any saving throw against any effect that tries to possess, dominate, or curse you. Now, this is actually this was kind of a better revised version of the divine health that the Paladin had, which was divine magic flowing through you makes you immune to disease. Though, like I mentioned before, disease is kind of out of D&D in some capacity. I did like the idea that you are like suffused with divine energy. You're almost like your body's becoming sanctified with this, with this holy power that you have, or unholy. I guess paladins can kind of go anywhere on the in the spectrum there. But regardless, you have this kind of energy feeling through you, and so I think it's cool to have that reflected, and I actually utilized that inspiration also in the cleric. If you haven't watched the cleric video, I also made a feature that kind of works similar to this, but is a little bit different in its own way, and kind of you get at a later level. But if you want to see what that is, check out the cleric video. But yeah, level 5 before was Faithful Steed. Basically, you always had the Find Steed spell, and you can cast it once without expending a spell slot, which essentially gave every single paladin ever to exist, or ever every player that ever has paladin to essentially have the ability to have a steed, a mount, which like is cool for those that want to do that, is not so cool for those that don't. And so I feel like if you want, Find Steed's a spell that you can literally take as a paladin. So if you want to have that, flavor, to have that, creature, have that ability, have whatever it is, have a horse, then you can take that spell, utilize it. I think that Divine Fortitude makes a lot more sense in kind of fleshing out that identity of the paladin, and kind of just gives it and kind of makes just a lot more sense in what the class is meant and kind of is as flavored as. So moving on, level 6 is going to be Aura of Protection. You radiate a protective invisible aura that extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but doesn't extend through total cover. The aura is inactive while you have the incapacitated condition. You and your allies in the aura gain a bonus to saving throws equal to your charisma modifier, minimum bonus of +1. If another paladin is present, a creature can benefit from only one aura of protection at a time. The creature chooses which one when entering the auras. Always been a super, super strong, very, very good support tool, very good support feature. That is pretty much unchanged. Besides, I believe they specified that you can only gain the effects of one. That's about the only difference, which is a good stipulation to have in there. Level 7 is going to be subclass feature. Level 8 is going to be the ability score improvement. Level 9 is going to be abjure foes. As a magic action, you can expend one use of your channel divinity to overwhelm foes with divine awe. As you present your holy symbol or weapon, you can target a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of one creature, that you can see within 60 feet of yourself. Each target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or have the dazed and frightened conditions for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. Really, really good. That's actually a new feature that they had introduced in the UA. I really like this. Gives you a little bit more options for your channel divinity, which is always good. And it gives me the vibes of the turn undead kind of that the cleric has. And so I really like that. I kind of like that. It's similar to that, but flavored in a different way. And so super cool feature. I enjoy that. I think that's pretty cool. I think you can really make for some cool moments as a paladin utilizing that. So level 10 is going to be Aura of Courage. You and your allies are immune to the frightened condition while they are in your aura of protection. If a frightened ally enters the aura, that condition has no effect on that ally while there. That is essentially unchanged, just worded a little bit differently. Level 11, Radiant Strikes. You are so suffused with divine might that your weapon strikes carry supernatural power with them. When you hit a target with an attack roll using a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, the target takes an additional 1d8 radiant damage. Super awesome. Level 12, Ability Score Improvement. Same. Level 13, Aura of Stabilization. This is actually going to be a homebrewed feature. I wanted to fill in a couple of the gaps that the Paladin had, because they had a couple just spaces in their progression. And so I did like that they added Abjure Foes. So I like that they filled that spot. And I wanted to fill in that other gap. And so this is a homebrewed feature that I added. So level 13, Aura of Stabilization. Any dying ally that is within the radius of your aura of protection is considered stabilized and no longer has to make death saving throws. The dying ally is no longer in the radius, and they must begin making death saving throws as normal. Continue from the results that they have had before entering the aura. I think this is just really cool. I like the idea that as a paladin, you don't necessarily need to, especially in like a critical, crucial, maybe like a dire moment of combat or an encounter, that you can rush over and just be like a healing, stabilizing presence to your party members that might be on the ground, so that you don't necessarily need to get to them right away. Maybe you need to fend off some sort of creature that's attacking them, or maybe you can, you're just getting there temporarily while another, maybe your cleric or maybe a healer or whoever else, another party member, can come tend to somebody. I just like the fact that this gives the aura even more of an ability, gives the aura even more support amidst the other awesome things that they already have. And I don't think it's anything too insanely broken either. I think that's just a cool kind of additional thing to add in there, but it's nothing too much to where it's gonna, kind of overpower the paladin in any way. I think it's just a good way to kind of allow the paladin to have some versatility in how they deal with supporting their party members, especially those that get knocked unconscious and need to be tended to. So, yeah. Moving forward, Restoring Touch, level 14. When you use Lay on Hands on a creature, you can also remove one or more of the following conditions from the creature: blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned. You must expend 5 hit points from the healing pool of Lay on Hands for each of these conditions you remove. Those points don't also restore hit points to the creature. It's pretty similar in a way to the 2014 Cleansing Touch. However, the Cleansing Touch in the old version was that you can end one spell on yourself or another creature. And in my mind, when I read that, it's essentially kind of like what this is now stating. It's basically you end something that is I guess it depends on what it is, but in my mind, you'd want to end effects of a spell that are negatively affecting your party members. And so I do like that instead of it making it kind of ambiguous, it's just kind of, it just tapped into allowing you to fill out the conditions chart in a way from your initial level 1 ability. So level 1, you got to remove the poisoned, and then now as you get to the back half of the class, you can now remove just a plethora of conditions. And I think that ultimately functions similar to how Cleansing Touch worked, but I would say I like this version a lot better. And I do also like that it you can do one or more. So I mean, and you just have to basically pay the respective cost, but you can, for one bonus action, do a very good cleanse and get one of your party members back in the fight if they're suffering from one of these or multiple. So that's super cool. It is literally, I just took that exactly as how it was in the UA. So level 15 is going to be a subclass feature. Level 16 is going to be the ability score improvement. Level 17 is going to be the no class feature, and I've specified this in previous videos for spellcasters. But if you're a half caster or a full caster, I wanted to leave one feature gap there in order to kind of give the marshals a little bit of a power curve above half casters and full casters, because obviously you get access to spells. A lot of them get access to like these channel divinities and a lot of different resource pools, and so I felt it to kind of help balance it a little bit, leaving a gap there. Which, I mean, you're still getting stuff as well. You're still getting access to more spells. You're getting access to your 5th level spell. And, you know, your proficiency bonus goes up, and so you're still getting rewarded for reaching that threshold, but just wanted to make it so that the marshals still kind of, you know, have a little bit more of the inherent features of the class. So level 18 is going to be aura expansion. Your aura protection now extends 30 feet from you rather than 10 feet. The exact same thing as in 2014. And then level 19 is going to be the ability score improvement. And then level 20, unlike any other class, you actually get your 20th level capstone feature from your subclass. And so I did not adjust anything there. I read through a lot of the Paladin capstones for the subclasses, and honestly, they're all pretty strong. And so didn't really need to mess with that in any capacity. But yeah, that's going to be essentially the Paladin from start to finish there. I really like where it's at now. I think that it's been given a couple more kind of key core, you know, identity class features that make it feel more like the Paladin, make it feel more like the flavor that the Paladin, you know, is kind of supposed to have and what people think that it, you know, it is. But and adjusted obviously some of the things that I mentioned that I didn't like that Wizards of the Coast had done, kind of bringing it back a little bit to the 2014, but just with some good overhauls and some good buffs there. I think the Paladin now is in an extremely good spot. I think it will continue to perform well as it always kind of has. It's an awesome support character as well as an awesome frontliner, and so really not much more to be said on that. But if you want access to this PDF, it will be the link will be in the description of the video. I did make this with the Homebrew website, which essentially lets you build out these kind of awesome looking D&D styled PDFs and documents, and so, you know, check them out if you want to. And then additionally and lastly, if you have any feedback for this version, feel more than free to leave anything constructive in the comments. I always like to see what you guys are also thinking, and maybe if you play test it, feel free to see how it all kind of works and comes together as well at your table. So that's all I have for Paladin. So I guess I'll see you on the next video.